Hey, this is Elliott, back again with Big Billy Clark.
Hey guys, welcome to the I Am Music podcast, and today we have two guests that I love, I've known for years, two old friends of mine, the Erikas, Erika Montes, music executive, and Erika Grayson, music veteran.
Erika with a C.
Yes, and Erika with a K.
You need to distinguish this.
The Erikas in the house. Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, this is fun.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Yeah.
Talk about kind of your history and kind of how you got into this industry, so people know.
Well, I'm only 25, so
you look amazing.
So good.
Thank you. No, I'm older than that, but I kind of started. I guess I really started with at Interscope, right? So I had jobs before that. I was kind of managing, doing all of the things that you're trying to do to be in the music industry. It was just like something I really wanted to do. I had internships and clients that I really didn't know what the hell I was doing, but managed to put demos together and shop them and kind of figure it out as you go. But I think a lot of people associate me with my life with Jimmy Iovine at Interscope Records, which was pretty extraordinary. Looking back now, you know he's amazing, but because you're in it, but you don't know that he's the guy that everyone else reveres so much.
Yeah.
And then from there, I did a lot of, management, entrepreneurial. I've sort of always been like inside or outside. I kind of go back and forth. It's probably like my personality of like when I can't take being inside anymore, I go back outside.
I know that feeling.
And then you're like, I think I'd rather just have a job. And then you're like, no, I don't like this. I want to go out. And so that's kind of been my ebb and flow through the industry. It's just, only label I worked for actually was him. But I kind of felt like once you worked for Jimmy, like who else was there? Even though everyone, there's some amazing leaders at these companies. Mm-hmm. Jimmy was just, he was just a special guy.
Yeah. And still.
Yeah. Still speak to. I actually spoke to him once during the pandemic, and he's just happy. He's a happy guy, still doing stuff.
I was like, what's Jimmy doing?
Yeah, I think from what I understand is investment fund, and they're funding important things and
everything.
Just done it the smart way. Honestly, I was like, he's
being rich and that.
I know.
I'm like, shout out to Jimmy, but yeah. But mostly, for me, it's always been about following my passions as closely as I could. And so the sort of in and out, or whether or not I was, living life as an entrepreneur, or helping others to build businesses or building them myself, it was always about like what I was excited about. Totally. And I find, believe it or not, as exciting as the music industry can be to those that are trying to get into it, it can get mundane after a while, and you can have, grow. You want more growth, and as the industry and the world kind of evolves, you want to be a part of those conversations. And so I think that you have to personally evolve, and then that tends to move you down different tracks.
Of course.
Yeah.
Totally.
Just opens doors as you kind of evolve and grow and learn throughout the business, and everything's always changing. So it's like you look at people like Zach Katz.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that we kind of all have our own passions too, right? Beyond music. So it's like if Zach's case was always technology. And so for him, figuring out this model, that he's utilizing has been extraordinary for him.
Yeah, amazing for him. I love Zach.
For me, it's a lot of film and television and storytelling. And so I sort of was able, what I learned from Jimmy and sort of how to utilize music as a sticky point of engagement, but then how to utilize that for brands or in the film and television space. So, it's just been a matter of, at the time you worry because you think like, all you want to do is make a record, and then you do that. And then you're like, oh, I don't like this as much. And then you're like, all you want to do is manage, and you do it well. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's dry. Life sucking. And then shout out to managers who still like it. And then you grow into, other things that, that help you evolve. And then you're just kind of grateful to still be here.
Yeah.
All our skills are transferable in some way, right? Like kind of figure that out. You take a little bit here, you take a little bit there.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, and going into that, explain kind of your
oh my goodness.
Intro to the business.
I guess if you didn't work at Interscope, I got the other side of it. I got to work at Def Jam for 10 years, so I think that was if anybody knows me from somewhere, it's that. Now, obviously, a different type of logo, but I think that was the logo that you wanted to work for.
Absolutely.
Back then, and it meant a lot. I learned a lot. It was like the best boot camp possible, if I could call it that, right? Like I learned everything I could possibly learn. Nothing phases me because if you went through it, but you went through it together, and that's obviously where I met you, Billy. Although you were on the West Coast,
I was,
and I was in New York.
Yeah.
But when I first met you, you were just like this huge personality in the hallway.
God, you changed so much.
Yeah, I was just about to say
No. You know what's crazy is not to change, like
No.
but like I remember when I moved to New York. I was there 9 years, but it was the last year of me being at Def Jam. They moved me to New York, and I remember that the first week or so that I was in the office, everyone was like, "We're so happy you're here. Your energy's amazing. We're so happy to have this bright sunshine in the office." And this and that. It made me feel so good, right? And then after like 6 months, people were like, "Everything okay? Because you're not the same Billy." And I just remember being like, "No, everything's fine." But like when you hear that enough, like by 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 people, I'm like, maybe something is wrong.
Yeah.
Like if everyone's saying like, "What's wrong with you? Everything okay?" Like, you seem really like. I was like, "No, I'm fine." I was like stressed the fuck out. Like I was so stressed out when I was in
You
New
were
York.
definitely not living that satellite office LA life.
No, I was not. But yeah.
But no, you always definitely stood out, and I think I learned a lot from my 10 years there. But it allowed me to like realize that I always wanted to be in music, no matter where I went, and I still feel that way. I mean, I started at Def Jam in 2001, which feels like yesterday, and yet you cannot believe it's 20 years.
I know.
So that's crazy to me. So I'm also 25.
To think I
just
was
FYI. I started as a 5. Like,
Tell me about those days.
yes, right.
I was
Oh,
7. I was
baby.
7. You know, I started in '94.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Don't judge me.
Stop.
I did.
I was saying,
hell.
holy crap.
You were
you're
born there.
incredible.
I was born in '91, but yeah, no, I started working at Def Jam when I was in there, but it was '94.
Do you know what grade I was in '94?
No.
Oh,
No,
wow.
no,
Wow.
Why would you say that, Elliott?
Wow.
No.
Not to you all. I'm just directing this over to
First of
Billy
all,
now.
Elliott, I don't like you anymore. Just that
Oh
simple.
man,
It was not directed towards you.
I feel even. I'll be 46 this year.
Ew.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Pull a fucking hamstring.
I know. Oh, my back, my leg, my hammy.
It's going to take
Sits.
you a week to recover
Yeah, I
from
know.
that, but that was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working out, so my stretch. I don't stretch very often, so that's bad. I shouldn't do that. I might throw my back out. I'll do it after.
We'll do that after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
twerking
We'll
after
totally
the after the podcast, post twerk.
When they turn
post
the
twerk.
AC
I'm
back
sure
on.
everyone
Yeah.
can't wait till these veteran music execs like twerk.
I mean, I would. No, let me shut up.
We're gonna end up a bad meme.
I know. Which could be fun.
Yeah, could be entertaining. I was about to say it could be
Bad
entertaining.
memes are what drives the industry right now.
Yeah, I never really wanted to be one, or to TikToker, or a
Yeah.
mom jean wearer, or any of those things. Yeah.
What's wrong with mom jeans?
Not my bag. Not my bag.
Not
but
my
I
bag.
know, shout out to moms that wear jeans, but
Yeah, I'm gonna get some mom jeans as well. As,
We're
I
going
try to
shopping.
be
Yeah.
as immature and youthful as possible, for as long as I can.
Oh my god.
I mean, look at this hairstyle.
Exactly.
Like, come on now. We're in high school.
She's like, I were the same in high school.
I
Don't I
love
look the
Yeah.
same?
How's everything at SoundCloud?
Oh, it's good. The second logo I worked for. I actually had this revelation this week where I actually had someone from Def Jam that I met at Def Jam become my boss this week, or actually last week.
Words or face?
Yes.
I love words or face.
And we had this, which funny, people call her Lauren Seawood. I'm just gonna shout her out here.
Of course.
We know her as Wurtzer. And we had this conversation. I was like, well, you come from a logo and you know how important a logo is, and just really, really heartfelt conversation of how much we want to keep building. And I don't think I've ever felt this passionate about something since that logo, because
yeah.
they don't, we focus so much on brand and how much it means, but I was like, no, there's really something here, right? So like we were kind of in it together and had just this good conversation about how can we make this logo just the best that it can be.
That's amazing. Lauren, if you're listening to this, we absolutely love you. We love Lauren. I mean, I remember being at Def Jam and you know, there was we'd have, you know, like A&R meetings basically. And if there was artists that were doing really well, like buzzing, that were on the table to be signed basically, like, you know, the last step of that would be like, yeah, they have all these streams and they're buzzing and you know, that we could do a big, huge deal with them, but does it fit the logo? And if the answer to that was no, we wouldn't sign them. And I remember just at that point going, why would you not sign this huge artist that's buzzing in Louisiana or wherever? But it's because it might not have went with the logo. And I remember there's another artist that's huge right now that Jessica Rivera was trying to push that we didn't end up signing because it didn't fit the logo. But it's a bit. I mean, it's a real thing. But like that's something that Russell really. I mean, and that's one of the things I talk about as well too. Like being a Def Jam for so long, like Russell was always very big on like it's a culture, not a job. It's a lifestyle, not a job. So like the 9 to 5 thing was like we worked all hours of the day, all hours of the night, you know, for that logo.
My little two-way SkyTel two-way.
Oh, I miss those things. And it had the little Big Pippin lyric.
Hilarious.
Oh my God. But it's so different these days, right? Like when you're talking about A&R back then, we sat in a room and probably really talked about radio streams. I mean, or radio plays, not streams, and just how different. The conversation this week was more of the label was the label and it had its identity, but then here's a streaming service that is supposed to encompass everything. But how do you make that streaming service its own identity, and who do you accept and who's important to that and all that kind of stuff? Because you're supposed to be for everybody, but
well, they're platforms that are competing in the market space just like everyone else. So they're trying to become an identifier among, you know, the other things so that people choose them over X. I mean, the same thing that's happening in the film and TV streaming platforms. All the DSPs sort of battling for who's going to get content share.
Yeah. And I think the only thing that was really important to me always, and I didn't realize it until now, I love to see like the evolution of an artist. That's always been a big thing.
Always, of course.
So, you know, I think if I could do that, but not be a manager, because management, oof.
Thankless job.
Oof. Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that.
Don't get me started. No, I'm just kidding.
It's funny. I mean, I you know, recently jumped back into that, into management, but luckily it's with artists that I, you know, have a relationship with and I've had history with. So it's not, it won't become all the things that I hate about management, you know, but you know, I still get a lot of artists that approach me for management. I'm like, oh, I don't know, because it's gonna, you know, it is a very thankless job, and whenever everything goes amazing, it's the artist, and everything goes horrible, it's the manager. It's the manager.
And yet, I always advise artists, picking a manager is a really, really important thing. I know we tend to pick like, this is, you know, my friend from this or whatever, but it does have to be somebody that shares your vision or at least sees more for you.
Totally.
Right.
Because that really, I always remember the example of Scooter and Justin, which now these days, who can even think back of what that was from seeing it its early days. And how, you know, obviously Scooter is this big company now, but it's like, I remember it was him and found him on YouTube or something. And when he brought him into the building, into Def Jam at the time, it was, he just believed in him so much. I've never seen anything like that where.
No, think about how many people that passed.
Yeah.
They don't really ever talk about that part of the story where some people, important people, not me specifically, but maybe someone in my building, they have passed on that project and many others.
Someone in your building that also had their own imprint that passed up on that situation, and that imprint is no longer, right?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
And at the time, let's remember, no teen, because this was 2009, 2008, 2009, like there were no teen acts that had made it if they weren't part of Nickelodeon or Disney or something like that, right?
I will say he was pretty like captivating though when he got brought to LA to maybe be in the same building as you. I saw him kind of do his song and dance for another act that was signed to the imprint, and I was personally blown away that I've never really seen anyone like that at that age.
Yeah.
And it was like really, really impressive to me, where it was very clear. Like, obviously I wouldn't think that, but I go, well, I've never seen anyone this sort of put together like that, and not even making it seem like he was molded, but he had something.
But
for
not
sure.
everybody sees everything, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Exactly.
I mean, I met Miguel when he was 16 years old, and we for Def Jam multiple labels, and they were like, and then suddenly Mark Pitts gets his little hands on him, and Mark's extraordinary, one of my favorite executives in the whole industry, and now Miguel is Miguel, right? And so it's just.
And
It
thank
isn't
God for Miguel.
Right. And there isn't, and it's not, I love to, this is why I stopped doing panels when I was doing A&R, because I just love the conversation of like, well, I can't get my music heard in A&Rs, they don't know shit, and this whole thing where commerce isn't even part of the conversation.
Right.
And then also that people are just like anyone, like we're human beings, like people are only going to see what they see.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so if you can't fault someone that, passed on Mariah because somebody did.
Yeah.
And passed on Bieber because somebody did. So everyone has someone that's gotten passed on. And you're like,
of course.
you get the next. I think I heard the story that the guy that signed the Beatles or signed something passed on the Rolling Stones or vice versa or something like that. So it's like,
I mean, on the flip side, we try to tell the artists too that come to camp is like, don't let that completely destroy you either. That this person that is in this
position,
this position that is looked at, some people just go, well, I guess I'm, good, I guess, because this person just doesn't see it for them. Again, trying to explain that. They're not nullifying that you don't have a talent. They're saying it is not working for what we're trying to push right now. Back to what you guys were saying.
Sometimes they're just no good. I'm just kidding.
I used to love when managers used to have attitude, especially producer managers, and they would come and they'd be like, I gave you that song, 7 months ago, and now it's on so-and-so, and it's super big. And I'd be like, guess what? I wasn't working on that project 7 months ago. Like, congratulations. Like, it was so weird to me because what people didn't understand, and I think still don't, is that I'm looking for a particular thing at a particular time.
Exactly.
Totally.
So if you send me, I think Umbrella was one of the famous songs that had like made its way around the world before it got to Rihanna. And it was like if you didn't have an artist that fit, it doesn't mean like you're an idiot because you didn't pick the song. You're just like, I don't have a platform for that. And I think that's what there's so much sensitivity and subjectivity in music that I think to your point, like you can't really lay your hat on just like one person's opinion or one pass or 10 passes or
especially if this is what you want to do, you're going to get that a whole lot, and that's sort of what we try to.
And you should be evolving as an artist regardless. Like I feel like now obviously it's harder. I do miss the days. This is so going to date me too, but like when people used to approach you with your CDs, because now it's just like an open forum of just upload your music and whoever gets it. But if you look at like Billie Eilish, just had a lot of tracks up before you got the good stuff, and Interscope, signed her, or any other artist, Juice WRLD, you name it.
Yeah.
Their early stuff, I'm like, Lord.
Yeah.
Like,
but they
you needed to evolve.
It's the 10,000 hour thing kind of, and letting them do their thing, as opposed to, the first project, I think people feel like it's like, this is what's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
This is going to be incredible. Like, okay. I'd say just throw music out there because you don't know what the hell it's going to do.
Right.
Yeah. None of us really know.
Things,
And I get it.
And those days are done. Like trying to wait on putting out a song because you're waiting for the right song. Like no, just give it.
No one's waiting
for you.
And that's the part I have to.
That's the truth.
That's the truth you have to have with yourself. Is like the world is not sitting there waiting for whoever I'm working with or whoever said artist to come out. So it's okay. Like the good news is it's great because you get an opportunity to kind of make mistakes and it's not so public and loud.
Yeah. And putting things out I feel like nowadays songs can break a year and a half to 2 years after. It's going to find its life wherever it is, or it won't. But like, what's the point in waiting to throw one dart to the board? Just get it out there. You're sharing something that you're trying to get people to latch onto, right? So,
but it's fear. I know it's scary.
And it's an artist thing, right?
Yeah,
it's an artist thing.
Because once it's out there and it doesn't perform to whatever your expectations are, then suddenly now,
But I feel like
you know, like, oh no.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think though, if you're putting out more frequent music, it lessens the blow of like being like, oh, it didn't, because if I spent a year working on a project and then it underwhelmed, then I go, I don't know. Hopefully I'd still believe in the music, but also if there are people out there that are throwing out music every 2 months or whatever, and if it hits, it hits.
I'm I like to think of myself as a spiritual person, believe it or not. A cursing one.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I think it's who you are as a person. I think it's like if you as an individual have detached yourself from outcomes of things and that you're allowed to have your journey and whatever that looks like, and you're not kind of validating yourself based off of outside, then that's what's going to make the difference. And or you're a total sociopath and you just don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks too. That works too, right?
Those guys that's the route too.
I'm just throwing shit out and who gives a fuck, and my music will be incredible and that'll be that. But I think that that's really what it is, because I think most artists are incredibly sensitive, and it's just hard to put yourself into something, I think, and for any of us,
of course.
And then for people not to like it, and then to not, internalize that they don't like you.
Yeah. I just also think people should know that there's so much more available now than there was back then. I think there's so many different ways to be out there. Not only can you upload your music, but then even how you market it. And I think one of the biggest things that I see so much with artists, don't just put up a song to get on a playlist. You're not getting anything.
Oh,
You're
man.
really not.
And
you have to put work in. Just like you have a job, I have a job, an artist has a job. Do your job.
Yeah.
It's not just to sing. It's not just to write. It's not just
do the work.
You have to do the work.
We sound old now.
But that's a great point, because people all they want to do is I got to get on a New Music Friday or something.
That's what they think is gonna make or break their their career. They need to understand what they're doing, have a plan, and attack it. I mean, just getting on a playlist isn't going to do anything for anybody.
They also need to understand how they. So this is the part that this is not generational, unfortunately. That for as long as I've been doing this. And I actually think some of the artists now are a lot more savvy and take more interest in how things work. But I used to say, like, if you could have the entire industry and how it works summed up in one book, put on a shelf, I guarantee you in every artist's house it'd have dust on it, right? So, like, the answers would all be there. So, like, people don't understand that, like, Spotify, Apple and all the other DSP forms, SoundCloud, are all just platforms, and they're another opportunity for you to have exposure. And then you need to know how those things work, right? SoundCloud has a very different set of both algorithms and rules and programs as the one across the street. And if you don't know that, and you're just aspiring to be at the, on the playlist that has the best marketing, right? Then what are you doing anyway?
So no one's doing any research. They're not doing.
And you're missing demos, right? You should be trying to cross all demos if you can, right? Like, don't just stick to one because of that, because you're in marketing. No, you got to be everywhere, be out there, because these are all tools for you to be bigger, to be better, to gain an audience. So you got to do the work. Yeah, that doesn't change no matter how old you are.
Yeah, and a lot of them aren't doing the work.
Yeah,
and they just want the easy route or the easy, quick,
Because also they're seeing certain people that maybe from the outside it doesn't look like a whole lot of time and work has been put in, even though they don't know, and it seems like this organic skyrocket for these artists that are just pop out of nowhere and blow up, and they go, well, my music's better than theirs, and then it just becomes a whole different thing of trying to compare yourself to another artist's journey of how that happens. And well, they're on these playlists. I'm like, well, is it doing anything for them truly? Or do you just want this or what? I think that's a lot of people are looking at the wrong stuff, in my opinion.
But the truth is, in anything, it's hard to make things look simple. Like
Right.
if you're creating a deck or a piece of art or a piece of music or a film, films that feel perfect
Yeah.
are incredibly difficult to write and pull off. Like songs that feel like they're perfect from hook to the out to like that just feel right. The production's right. They're hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to make things look simple is very, very hard. And I think people don't respect that.
Well, again, it goes back to sort of the thankless thing. Like if you guys do your job, it does look like this artist. I organically found them. They're just popping up. They're great.
Right.
Not the fact that you all did your work so well that it was on the car when I turned on my car, on the TV when I looked at the TV, on whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it right, it does look, if you busted your ass, it does look very like, this
Just
person
happened.
just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
This is unbelievable. This is destined to be.
That's
You
the
go,
right. That's the right
Yeah.
way.
you have no idea how much time, energy,
Work,
and
of
resources
course.
went into that to make it feel like that for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It did. And we haven't even touched on TikTok. Lord, those challenges, which people just want to do. And I will say this, I have never done a TikTok, but I feel like that would be difficult.
Let's do one today before we leave, guys. Yes. Just kidding.
So,
No, but seriously, can we do it real quick? I've been.
Have you? I mean, you used to be a choreographer, so
I mean,
you have an advantage.
I feel like you could be big on TikTok.
How are you not big on
Yeah,
TikTok?
that's-
I don't even have a TikTok.
Well,
which is kind
I
of-
do have a TikTok.
All right.
so there you go. Yeah.
I haven't
Bullshit,
posted
no.
anything. I have artists that I have to look
Of
after.
course,
I'm not.
yeah.
How would that look if they're like my manager's on TikTok doing dance?
Yeah, but also they
Well,
know you.
That's just who you are.
Maybe
and
you
everyone
just
loves you
manage
for
yourself
that.
on TikTok
I
and
mean-
you'll blow up.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about that, huh? Another hour, he's gonna be in pain.
And question for you, Erika Montes. So when you were saying that you have a new boss over at SoundCloud and you guys are like, we're excited, we want to keep it what it is. Like she said, it's your guys' structure and everything
Yeah.
and messaging and stuff like that is very different. I mean, we started uploading my brother's music there like 8 years ago when it was like right after us doing MediaFire download links because we didn't know where else to put it. And that became like when we discovered SoundCloud, we thought it was just the coolest community that
Yeah.
we could find. There's producers from around the world and this, that, and third. Like,
Does everyone know who your brother is? Should I say it? Did we say it?
oh no, I don't know.
It's a
Yeah, he's
big artist.
a rapper named Bones,
Yeah.
but he's
Team
he's.
Sesh.
We were just saying
Yeah.
he's unknown, but he's known to the people that know him,
Yes.
which is something that we talk about. Is like
Yeah.
you can pick a speed and still be successful in whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
And put out content and not give a shit about anything else. But I mean, I remember labels reaching out to us when we first started putting things there, like I said, like 8 years ago, going, so what is the deal? Like, why are you guys getting this like traction and things like that? And it was just like mixed, your guys' platform mixed with the timing, I think was like, everyone was looking, our age of supporters were looking for another place that felt
Real and organic.
underground as
Yeah.
well, because
Yeah.
that's what my brother is in, is this underground world that was like, that was the perfect thing. And it was like married to that. And it was like a really cool thing to watch all that happen. And us, nobody wanted to get, just because we had streams there, nobody else wanted to give us a chance. And I'd rent out the House of Blues on Sunset with our own money and sell it out. And all of a sudden it was like added some validity to it. But like, how is it trying to keep that cool, like I hate to say it, the cool factor of what it is, because that's why people are choosing to use it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a challenge because I think, how do you take something that people consider cool, underground, and then you want to blow it up?
Make it bigger.
Yeah,
Right.
make
Yeah,
it bigger.
right,
Like,
yeah.
how do you do that
Yeah.
without losing? And I think that's the big task ahead of us, right? It's we call it, everyone calls it a digital service provider, DSP. We like to think of it as a social media platform that isn't shiny and glossy yet. And how are we going to do that? I guess we'll see. But that's the big task ahead, because what we want is to make sure that artists can still build a fan base, but also if we want them to be bigger, we either have to figure that out in-house, how to elevate that to the next level, or start partnering up.
Yeah,
and
right.
figuring out how
Right.
to, you know, so I think that's who's to say what's going to happen in the
Yeah.
next
Oh,
year or
that's
two
so
or
cool.
all
later.
these new
Yeah.
things coming on the money
Yeah.
splice and
Yeah.
you know all these
Yeah,
other
like I was like,
opportunities.
Turntable FM is
Yeah,
back, like
just
all
yeah.
this kind of stuff that I've heard, and I'm like, Lord, where do we go?
I know.
You know, so
But
much.
you guys are, I mean, I love it because you guys are always really good with all the artists, you know, and you deal with the artists directly on a lot of stuff. So it's like you guys are so connected to that whole world. And you know, a lot of times I mean, you talk and you're just like, I'm dealing with, you know, this whole a list of artists that
Yeah.
that are buzzing on the platform. And it's like you're just trying to make sure they keep doing their thing. So
Yeah.
I love that you guys do that.
I mean,
know,
I
it's a
wish
great
I would have
platform for
worked
artists.
closer with like, you know, Bones and
Well,
Team
that's
Session,
what
but,
I mean. We
like,
definitely got to
yeah.
talk because I feel like it was like we went through the thing of going, okay, evolving, right? And just like at a certain point, we're like, he didn't have his music anywhere else at that time for several years. We didn't
Yeah.
put stuff up on Spotify, Apple Music, or anything until like 2018 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like we waited a very long time, and then it was like the urge to be like, okay, well, it seems like our fans are now starting to listen other places as well, where that place, we drove it there.
Yeah.
We wanted to drive it there. Now it was trying to evolve and trying to be like, okay, I don't want to be missing out on things. But now looking back, and it's like, you know, we got to talk
Yeah.
figure out something, because it's like, that's where our collective came from, truly, is my
And, like,
brother
how do you
found this
activate it?
talent
Yeah.
on SoundCloud and created this amazing thing. And I feel like everything has its way of like, you know,
Yeah.
you
Well,
guys are weathering the storm of all.
And the other conversation we had, obviously, work has been really conversational this week. We were talking about when SoundCloud started. Obviously, I was, you know, just not. This was 2008. Think
Yeah,
about the
right,
people
yeah.
that started with SoundCloud, and I think about this on a lot of businesses, right? Like even if you think about like when Def Jam started to when you and I left to when you left Interscope, you know, like if I was 15 when SoundCloud started, think about I'm 28. And how do you still appeal to them? How do you appeal
Totally.
to who you grew with? And what about the artist that grew with you? And is someone else like a Spotify or an Apple? Is that the demo now? But or how do we get new people? It's
So
a
many-
lot. It's
yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
things
it
to
is.
think about. And I can just imagine how difficult it is for an artist as well. You know,
It just felt cool at the beginning, though, to feel like there was someone on the other end of the emails of like, I think earlier on it was like a lady named Jane Shin that was,
Yes.
oh yeah, so Jane
Yeah.
was really amazing, and Ian Stearns, I think, was
Yes.
in the London office, I think, or something. But it felt like, oh man, like there's someone there that's
We're
answering the
talking to
questions, and
people.
that's all that
Yeah.
we wanted, because everyone else was just like, nope, this isn't commercial, no one's helping you.
Yeah.
There's no one on the
Yeah.
other end of this line. But it was that, I feel like that was something that felt really
Yeah.
special and felt like, oh, this is where we want to like show love too. you know?
I got that a lot when I first started because they were like, oh my God, we're talking to somebody at
Yeah.
SoundCloud. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I think that's honestly always a big thing for me, is to make sure that everyone feels like they actually have a hand in it.
Yes.
You know, like you are a part of our family.
Totally.
I think that's always been super key for me, and I hope we can keep that up. I wish we could get to everybody, but
Yeah.
there's not
That's
that many
just
of
not
us.
You're
realistic.
good at that.
Yeah.
You're
But
good
you
at
know,
that.
I think it's
You've been really good at that.
so.
I think a large
Yeah.
part of the love of SoundCloud too is that it was kind of like one of the first places for discovery.
Yeah.
And so I think that as artists evolve into wherever platform they end up being or however big, they still kind of have a love or a heart for the place that like started them out.
Yeah.
So
Oh man, yeah.
I think you guys will always sort of carry that for people.
Yeah.
you
I
know?
hope so, because I hope that I think that's big for all of us, right? Never forget where you came from. Like
Yeah.
I'll never forget where I came from.
Yeah.
As
Right.
far as like, no matter who I become, I'm always going to be that little assistant that started at Def Jam answering Gabby and Amani's phones, and I'm like, oh man.
And I'll always be
Yeah.
that intern that Deidre Graham was throwing stuff at me like, answer the
Oh my
phone,
God.
punk. Deidre. I love you, Deidre.
She doesn't throw things in.
No, she doesn't. No, she never threw anything at me. I was
She
just-
never threw anything.
No, she
ever.
never threw anything. As an intern in the office, it was just, I mean, It was a lot. It was a lot of.
Well,
it was
we
a
came
lot
up through
of-
an era where there was a lot less lawsuits being filed.
True.
We probably
I was just-
have seen a lot more.
I was just happy to be there. I was happy to.
And we were happy to be there.
But just even the videos of like Randy getting yelled at, like that would have never. That sort of
My
thing
God.
now.
Love Randy
memories
Acker.
are
Shout out to
coming
Randy
back.
Acker.
Love that. Yeah. Remember when DMX stole his shoes
Oh
in the
my
studio?
So many things would
I
happen.
mean, we've seen. I mean, there's been fights in the. I mean, there's like
Oh, yeah.
notorious like fist
Yeah.
fights and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we lived in the era of like HR was kind of like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. That to me seems so exciting and so interesting.
was
that I would have
exciting.
loved.
It was.
Honest to God, I would have loved to like, because there was also a path that you guys understood, and you were paying your dues when you were an intern, and all those things. Later on, it felt like it was like, well, I know where we're trying to go, but really, I have no idea how to get there because all of these things they're saying are, the models are changing and everything's changing, and so I feel like that was something that I wish I had
A lot of people that miss
experienced.
steps, right? So like I think what the wisdom gets you is wisdom, right? It gives you like a lot of trial and error and a lot of like getting beat up and a lot of like how to navigate through a lot of other people that
Yeah.
kind of didn't know what they were doing in terms of managing people and
Right,
things
yeah,
like that.
right.
And so for that reason, I think it makes you more nimble as an executive and you have superpowers that maybe someone else doesn't have because
Yeah.
they didn't have the same type of trial and error.
Totally.
Absolutely right.
And it's no disregard to the new generations that are coming up. It's just that how people get on is much different than how
Totally
we were.
different.
And so we were used to, and I've seen it in our cohorts, unfortunately, that feel like they should be in a new era, treating people like you gotta pay your dues and not make money.
Yeah.
And these kids today have no respect. They don't
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous, right? Because they are also bringing value in ways that
Yeah.
we couldn't even imagine
Right.
back then through the through being operational and digital, right? And
Right.
they're being able to help us understand and create income streams, at 20 years old,
Right.
They're utilizing TikTok. I know a kid, shout out to Ogo, who has a whole agency that, works with TikTokers and influencers and brands. And he's like 23 years old. He's doing extremely well.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And so, there has to be sort of this, common, it's this back and forth respect and regard.
Yeah.
But we do have a skill set because we were treated so badly. But we were expected to be up all night. We were expected to work crazy hours, and people got upset. They'd just go up in people's offices and fight them. And
Yeah.
The
so
stories. I'm sure we could write a book.
Yeah. I
they
will
don't
say,
want me
like,
to write a book.
I am serious
Yeah,
when
me
I
neither.
say, like, I feel like stuff can come at me and I'm just like, what? What was that?
Yeah.
What are you talking
No
about?
big deal.
Nothing
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
I've seen kids, and I shouldn't say kids because but the generations now where they'll look at an email and it's just like one thing is off in the wording and it just like they're crying.
They're very
crying
and
on
they're,
the ground.
they're incredibly principled, and you can't speak to them that way.
Yeah.
And what I had to check in myself was like we were mistreated, right, in a lot of ways. And so when they raise their hand and say, "Oh no, you won't be speaking to me this way," we didn't develop that until much later. None of us were supposed to have been dealt with that way.
Yeah.
And so we have to like heal and recognize like, hey, you're right. Like people should treat each other with respect and kindness and professionalism, which didn't exist. a lot.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Empathy has become, obviously we should all have empathy. I think it would make us all better people,
Yeah.
execs, who, everything. I think what I deal with these days is more of don't focus on the wrong thing. Because I think that happens a lot. I got an email this week and it was just like a couple of things written and 4 of us were in there and he made a claim about something and that's what they're hung up on. And I'm like, but look at the top part that says, this is what was missed, this and this and that. I'm like, don't look at even that yet because that's just an opinion.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't focus so much on people's
Yeah.
opinions.
Yeah.
Focus on the actual top part that is work. Because I'm like, then none of this is going to get solved, and we're just going to
Yeah,
keep giving
we're gonna
energy
go-
to something
yeah.
that isn't even true.
Right.
But you know, the sports teams, right? So if you look at sports, like a lot of them develop their team, their future teams in their like the G League or you know they
farm system.
right,
Yeah,
and it's the farming system. We don't have that in our business, and yet you have people who are as old as 70, almost 80 years old, and people who are as young as 19 and 20. And I'm just talking purely on the business side,
yeah.
interacting. And imagine how much time that is of experience and difference of, you know, time. It's like incredible.
Yeah.
So there's no opportunity for the youngins to like, they don't have wisdom. And I tell this to like my little Gen Z mafia all the time. I'm always like, oh, they're I live for them. But I'm always like, you're incredibly intelligent. You are, you know, incredibly principled. You know, you have so much knowledge, not just about what you do, but about the world in general. But you don't have wisdom, and that's and the one thing you can't have until you have time. And so there needs to be humility around the fact that there's a lot of people that have lived here a long time and have figured out through trial and error what's going on, and then just recognize that like you'll get there. In the same way that you want respect for being incredibly smart and brilliant at, you know, 19 years old. So but there's no system, right?
No.
There's no format. It's just like, let's bring this 20-year-old genius in here that can, you know, that can scrape, you know, that can build a scraper and figure out these algorithms, and then just toss them in with a bunch of old heads that are like, oh, back in my day, you know, you shouldn't get paid anything and sign this NDA saying that you didn't do any of this work that you actually did, and we're going to pay you nothing. And, you know, they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know? So
I can go start my own shit.
And that's exactly what's happening.
That's what's happening.
And so we're going to lose, you know, the big companies are going to lose because they're not going to get this talent in the ways that they should. And I think the young generation's not going to develop in the ways that you want them to, because they don't have a senior person that's looking out for them and saying,
agreed.
Operate this way.
Even before the pandemic, I remember reading this thing about how all the Ivy League schools, you know, these kids, these amazingly smart kids were coming out of these Ivy League schools, and they weren't taking these, you know, multi-million-dollar jobs that were being offered to them because they were like, why am I going to go work for them? I mean, huge companies, when they're like, I could just start my own company with the same, like do the same thing that they're doing. And so all these companies were kind of confused, like, why can't we fill these positions? Like these kids that are coming out of these schools don't want these jobs, and anybody would kill for those jobs, but these younger kids are like, I can start my own Google. I can start my own. You know, Facebook. I can do my own Facebook tomorrow. What are you talking about? So it's like they don't want that. So very interesting, but it's a. And
they've also watched our generation, like, you know, give up IP. You know, work under things that we've created that like suddenly we don't own because we work for a company, and they're like,
very true.
I learned about IP. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like, so we've taught them to be, you know, look, do it yourself, because you're not necessarily going to get, you know, whatever. And they don't care about right now. They're not caring about 401ks and investment products. They have Bitcoin. So they're like, whatever, I have crypto. I'm investing now.
Well, even on the artist side, because artists have spoke out going, don't sell your publishing, don't do this. It's all the horror stories. Hopefully certain young artists can look at that and go, oh no, like if this person got screwed, like what do you think's going to happen to me? You're talking legendary artists that have spoken out and said this, that, and the third. But again, it's because of the generation before. If the younger generation has to listen, or else they're bound to just.
But it's a pendulum, because, you know, when is the right time to sell your publishing? These are the things that's like the wisdom part, right? So it's like, I remember being in a room on Clubhouse. Shout out to Fadia, and there's some very seasoned writer producers on a panel that were telling people like, oh yeah, we were talking about syncs and film and television opportunities. And one of my clients and partners is Malcolm Lee, the director who has the new Space Jam coming, building his music properties. And so I'm speaking about the opportunity in film and television versus film, how TV can be really a marketing opportunity for you, in addition to like actual, income.
Of course.
And, big producer who left nameless is like, yeah, you got to get in there because you could get like 100,000 and you could. And I'm like, yeah, so there's this thing called favored nations.
Yeah.
And if they don't get your song, they're just going to take someone else's.
Yeah,
And it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
And, trying to politely sort of not say that what they were saying was incorrect. So that people can really learn. But it just made me understand that, like, even those of us who have been here, don't really know all the ins and outs of every part of the business, and how could we? I don't know how their algorithm works over there and what they're doing. I just say call.
And the important part is that we should all be talking to each other. I think we can all learn from each other. That's young generation.
So much.
We just have to be open to it, which
Of course.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I think they trade information better than we do.
I will agree with you there.
They're all
I
scaredy pants.
I agree.
And they really are like, oh, I'm just going to call my friend over at Facebook and see what they do. And and it's so easy, and they don't think about it. I think we're still like, should I?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, because if you think about it, when we were younger, and we know that relationships is
everything.
Everything. So how? I mean, no one was ever telling me, give away your contacts. Like, that was a big no-no,
Yeah, everyone was like,
my
Rolodex is everybody. Here's my friend.
And so was I.
That's what I was doing.
I never cared about that.
You look at his face. Yeah. That's what I was doing, and I'm going to regret it.
Well, because I remember one of my attorneys that I had, would always yell at me, and he would just go, I can't believe you hooked up this person with that person. You need to get paid from that. And I'm like, how? I was so, you know me. I'm like, I just love my friends. I'm just gonna hook them up. I don't care. Yeah. But he's like, and then I would set up a meeting with these two people. Oh, can you connect me with this person? And I'll connect them. And then all of a sudden, like, my letter's like, oh, so and so does $10 million deal, and I'm like, oh, that's what you're talking about? Like, I should get a piece of that? Oh,
wait a minute.
But I still never could grasp, like, how do you?
Well, anyone that didn't put a check in the mail is probably not really your friend.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely, like, worked with people that I had no expectation of making money.
Right.
I was just like,
but because they want to be cool, they cut you.
And I'm like, why did you send me money? And they're like, because you did such and such.
They felt like it was the right thing to do.
I did too, But my attorney was like, beforehand, you need to have them sign this. I'm like, no one's going to sign that. And then there's 6 degrees of separation anyways. They're just going to go around me if they really need. Like, if someone was like, oh, you want to connect with this person? I need this much money. I'd be like, I'll just go with it. I know everybody. I know so many people I can go around.
Smaller than you.
I think there is something to be said for social currency. And I think that's what the newer generation understands is that they're like, they're going to need stuff from me. I'm going to need stuff from them. And we're just going to trade information. And then anyone that screws them, they just realize like they're not so fragile that they're going to die. Right. And so they just move on and they don't deal with that person anymore. And I just don't think that's where we lack, because we were all taught to be like, oh, watch out for that one. Watch out for this one. And that one's going to do this. Yeah. And had to get a lot of therapy and things to like, to recognize that, like, hey, my path is my path. And whatever comes of it is meant for me. So
I always loved connecting people, though. I just thought that was the best thing ever. And I feel like I have so many great, and I will say friends, not acquaintances, because of that.
Yeah.
20 years into this industry, and I think it
no, just really harping on this 20 shit.
I mean, it's our anniversary. So
that's not me.
I'm looking at my face.
We met in 2000.
It's not 20. Hold on.
No, I know. I'm just like, this is like, as far as years in the business, I'm like.
Speaking of relationships, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have come to the Valley if not for my relationship.
There you go.
So.
You wouldn't have, really?
No, I'm dead ass.
Oh, the Valley is so nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Look at her, like,
beautiful Burbank. Come on, guys.
Yes.
When I saw that GPS, it said 43 minutes, and it was like red. I was like, oh, I love you, Billy.
Well, I love you guys. I love you guys for doing this. Where do you live at? Where are you at?
Mid-City.
Okay, but you're not. At one point, you were like Marina or like.
Yes, and I love it. Yeah. I mean, we'll see about the Valley. The Valley's out. See, to me, the Valley's like another state. has a different area code.
Everyone says that.
It doesn't live in the
It
valley.
has
I
a
feel
different
like
area
Wait, so
code.
are you in the valley too?
yeah, I'm even well.
He's
It has a different
deeper.
I moved I moved near.
Yes.
It's
yeah.
like we're literally in a different state. Once you come over like the 101, you can
Yeah, but also it's
physically
lovely.
feel it.
It is lovely.
It's
I will
lovely.
say it
So
is.
Miami's lovely too, but again, it's also
I don't know about that either. That's debatable too.
It's out of state.
You guys are hilarious.
We're snobs.
It is nice here though. Every time I come visit you, like in Studio
Yeah.
City, I'm always like, oh, it's so
But
pretty.
then you have to
But then
leave
I
and
have
go
to
all the way
exactly.
home.
It's the journey.
Which is how I would feel going to a meeting in town.
Well,
and
Yes.
I went to
Love
go.
it.
I went to go see Erica.
You
Well,
love driving though.
how
I
long-
have a feeling.
No, I mean not long distances though. But the day that I came to see you,
Yeah.
So are you saying that
It
the
took
valley
me-
to LA is long distance?
no,
I just would
No,
like
but
to
listen,
reiterate
wait.
my point.
well, because she just moved. She just moved.
I'm
I know
probably
where
like
she
2
lives.
minutes away
She's-
from
yeah,
her.
I know where she lives.
Okay, but look at so when I took the GPS took me all the way to like the 110 down to the 10, or it took me all the way around, and I was like, where am I going? I in my mind I think I just cut straight down like La Brea.
You're like,
No,
going
it was
over the
like
hill.
I had to go all the way around the Staples Center to come to you. I was like, where do you live?
And when you're doing it, you go, why does this person live here?
I know.
And I'm sure it's the,
No,
the
it was
same way
it
when
was
they come
Saturday,
to see
wasn't
me.
it?
It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
It was
So
I
like
just
off.
feel
I was
like
just
if you don't
cruising.
have, a partner and children and like don't want to go out after 10.
That's me.
Yeah, well then
All
that
of
makes
it.
sense.
Yes.
Wife
I'm
and
single
two
and
children.
25.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like I'm not retired. So
That does not mean you're retired. Excuse me. Okay? Just because I'm not out gallivanting.
Elliott's retired.
I'm a
No.
gallivanter and
This is the gallivant.
I definitely am a gallivanter.
Every time I see it, I go, this motherfucker is
Yeah.
everywhere.
you really are everywhere.
You
I feel
really,
a way
like,
about
you
the fact
are.
that we don't get invited.
I feel like I don't get invited.
What?
Ex-
We're invited
No
where?
one's done anything.
You went to a barbecue last week, and I was like, I didn't even get invited to
The one event that he's not invited to,
Right.
he goes,
I
this
was
is a
at
problem.
Fadia's house, and then there was
Oh.
a day you were busy.
That's right.
Yeah, that was the
See?
day you were
Yeah,
actually
in
busy.
Joshua Tree, gallivanting.
Or
we can go to
anywhere.
we can go to Joshua Tree.
I've never been.
It's beautiful. And it's a
Yeah.
nice getaway.
I wouldn't know.
I've driven through.
I wouldn't know.
Let's go.
If you
Okay.
can get a cool house, yeah.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, I'll find a
I'm
house.
with it.
I'll find a
Yeah.
house.
I'm with it.
Yeah, I'll find a
the
house.
panoramic is done as far as I'm
we'll do
concerned.
it. I meant to say this earlier too, Elliott. How exciting is it for you to like?
Should we hold hands? We're so far away.
Hi.
How exciting is it for you, like talking about SoundCloud and how you guys started on SoundCloud to see
Yeah.
the progression of how much your hard work has gotten your brother from where he started to where he is now.
Oh, yeah.
Like how
I mean,
amazing is that?
it's-
And then to also think about where it's going still, like because I know that's going to break wide open. Like it's going to be
Well, like it's the reason why I still love doing it, and it makes it better because it's with my brother and he's my best friend, and so it's like we've built this like thing that now supports households, and we have yet to like compromise. We do it the way that we want to do it, and we bet on ourselves from the beginning.
I love that.
And my
I
brother,
think it's so here. I was gonna say this for you is that, and I think this is a good topic, but this idea, because like when we started 10 years ago, if you didn't want to be Michael Jackson, no one was interested, right? It was
Right.
like if you came in and was like, yeah, I want to have like a career that falls like somewhere down here, they'd be like, get out of here.
right?
And so now this idea that you can actually sustain yourself and have a very lucrative career, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
And like kind of like
I
talk
mean,
about
we
like, what
never-
you guys have built.
We never thought that we would be like, I believed that he could, like, I'm his biggest fan from the jump. I took him seriously from the get-go. But like, we were thrilled when we got our first like $1,000 paycheck from SoundCloud for a month. We couldn't believe it. We're putting our music out for free. We still don't sell our music. And I feel like we decided that there was so many kids like him that weren't feeling like they were being catered to. Everyone underneath that massive mainstream, so to say. And we were like, okay, we're going to try to give you something that feels like you and authentic. And also we give a shit big time, sometimes to a fault. But because of that, we have such a loyal, like, he's never had a song on the radio. He's turned down every major feature that people slide in the DMs and try to do, just because it doesn't feel good to him. And he'd rather be able to have only a few people recognize him when he goes out than not have any semblance of a normal life. But yet we're ducked off. I feel grateful every day that we're doing this and in this way. And it makes it cool because it's him. It's like my parents run our warehouse that we have in Burbank for our merchandise. Like we have,
So
everything is beyond in-house. And it
True
feels
family
weird.
business.
Yeah, and scary when you contemplate expanding that, because we've done it this way for so long, but also we understand, like we've talked about, evolving, right? And so maybe now it's like he's starting to get old. He's 24 now, and he started when he was 17, and but now he's starting to be like, you know what? Maybe I will accept like my flowers now and allow these people that clearly he influenced. A lot of them are past now, the Peeps and the Juice WRLDs and the X's, but people that reach out that are very mainstream that show him love, like maybe he's going to allow himself to kind of do that now because maybe it feels better now.
Right.
He feels okay to be equipped to handle that. Because at that time, when everyone started kind of calling, it was like, he was like, no way, I won't do this. I don't want to do this at all. And I was like, all right, cool. Then you know yourself. And so I'm not going to push you to do. But it also became kind of like made them chase harder too, because we were like, no, we're cool.
Right.
I'm booking the tours. We don't use Live Nation. We don't use anyone. Like I started out asking kids where they're from, what venues they go to. I'd have them tweet the venue. And then when I reach out to the venue, the booker's like, all right, I've already seen you on social media. Like, so I was able to book the shows and route everything. And that felt comfortable to us, and it still does, but it's just sort of growing.
It's scary. No, I will say this, it's scary because I do, when something that's super important to me, I think what ends up happening is that people catapult and that takes a toll on you. I think fame these days because of social media is a completely different beast, and you have to be super, super careful.
And I mean, also, my brother truly doesn't want to be famous. it's literally like every time that I go, maybe we should explore this opportunity. This person really wants to do a song with you. This person wants to reach whatever. And he'll go, he immediately thinks of the potential negatives that would bring our family, his lifestyle.
Right.
He's
a little bit of recognition these days can
Oh my
blow
gosh.
up.
Well, and also
in life.
just having a cool, like, as long as, he gets his private kudos from people, that's totally enough for him.
Yeah.
He's
also,
fine.
to be able to make money at the thing that you love.
Oh my
is
goodness.
like
That's the dream,
part,
honestly, right? Like,
And
That's
somehow I think people are missing that part.
Yes.
I mean, look, some people get it, they're just like, I want to be famous. I
Right.
get it. Shout out to them.
and that's fine too if you're honest about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do think that I'd love for kids especially to be okay with sort of this concept that your career can look however you need it to look, as long as you can support yourself.
Of course.
So to do it or support whatever you need to support.
That's what we tell us. Wouldn't it be a dream to just not have a normal, regular job?
Right.
Like, what if the kids that come to camp, if you could just make money playing music? I'm not saying you're in a mansion, but isn't that the dream? Wouldn't that just be the most unbelievable thing? And if that's the case, there is a space for you in here. It just may not be.
Well, because you think about how many people when they start, right? They're like, I just want to get to a place where I don't have to work a job while I'm doing this.
Yes.
I could just do music full time.
They want
And
to
then
just do
that
this
happens
thing.
and suddenly the industry starts to impose on them
Right.
and they start feeling like, I gotta make more money or have more things. And you don't. Actually.
No, you don't actually. Yeah.
That's ultimately why, with the camp, that's ultimately the reason why we love it still, and we've been involved for so long. I mean, I think you've been involved longer than I have, a year longer than I have.
It's been about 13 years, 14
I think
years.
I was 12 years, but I mean, we love it, and it's our way of giving back, and it's like we wish we had this when we were coming up. We never did, So it's like this is our way of like educating artists and songwriters and people to come and hopefully be able to sustain a career, and be able to pay their rent and their bills and do what they love to do. So
Also, being around that when they step on campus and they're from around the world and they are taking a leap, that hunger is like it's the coolest thing in the world for me. Like, and sometimes I think when you're doing it, you miss that kind of. Some people, again, because they have teams around them that aren't willing to, do it themselves. All these kids have taken the chance and they've come from another country to come here to get advice, tips, whatever it is, get better at what they want to do and try to make this a dream. Like you go, I've got to give everything that I have because it'd be a disservice not to.
But also you're building community because
that's
they're
the
there,
biggest thing.
right?
Yeah.
And that's all we are is a huge industry of communities. You
And
know?
it's even smaller than everyone else thinks. I think when they come here, that's our biggest thing too.
Yeah.
It is. It's why when we lose people that we haven't even met, we're so
It feels
respond
like
to it
yeah.
so
Yeah.
deeply.
Yeah.
Because you're just like you've lost a child.
Yeah.
Or
You're connected somehow,
Totally.
whether you know it or
It's
not.
a
Like,
million
yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
So, you know,
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I think this is like, is in as hard as it has been coming up, it's also been, the greatest ride too. So
Yeah. Wouldn't change it for the world.
no, we
No.
were really rock and roll.
Yeah.
We really.
Or you're just,
I mean,
everyone's still on the ride.
Yeah, well, yeah, the journey's still going. But like I
Yeah.
said, my point is that like all the craziness that I've dealt with in my career and all the, same with you, Erika, and you,
Erika.
And the other Erika.
and you, Erika. But like all the stuff that we've dealt with, I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I remember when I was at Def Jam, I used to always feel like certain people would kind of get taken under their wing and like get special treatment, and and I was like, you feel like you work so hard. It's like, well, I've been here longer, or I've been whatever. And it's natural to feel that way, but like I'm glad that my journey evolved the way that it did because it taught me, to be who I am now and how to deal with the way I deal with people and just everything about how I do business now. So
Yeah, and if you have joy, like if you can wake up and say that you are a person with joy in your life, and not every day, trust me on that.
Yeah.
This morning I was not so joyful, but like just in general, I think that's again, I'm turning into a bigger hippie than I had ever meant to, but that's the truth. It's like the goal for me now every day is like, how fully expressed can I be and how happy can I be?
Yeah.
And then what are the things that it requires
Yeah.
to do that?
It's the wisdom.
Yeah,
That's the
there it
wisdom
is.
kicking in. Yeah. So, yeah, I can't, it's so crazy the things that I used to focus on back then that now I'm like, it never mattered.
Yeah.
It never mattered.
yeah.
Truly. Yeah.
And now I'm just like, just put one foot in front of the other. You're doing fine.
Yeah.
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 Keep going.
Yep.
I love you guys.
Thank you guys so much for driving this
Phil.
way.
Yeah.
Yay.
Appreciate
Thank you
it
guys.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you
Thanks
guys
for having us.
for
Thank
being-
you.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. And if you want to see more episodes, click here.
Somewhere here.